Morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Thanks for joining us for this Learn Live session and series. I'm so happy to be joined with Amit. Would you like?
Great to be here. Happy
She's,
that you're joining us for today's session.
yeah, and you're an amazing technical trainer at Microsoft. That's really cool.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I've been specializing in infrastructure and security.
Great.
So I'm very happy to be part of this series. And I'm
Yeah.
really glad that I'm here with you.
Yeah, this will be great. Yeah, so I'm a senior cloud advocate at Microsoft, and today, with our powers combined, we're going to configure Azure Files and Azure File Sync. We'd love for you to follow along with the module, so you can follow that AKMS Learn Live link or scan that QR code and follow along with us. So we like to keep it interactive and fun, so you're not just listening to us talk.
Yeah, feel free to ask all of your questions because in the chat we have the amazing Sarah supporting us, which is also a fellow technical trainer.
Yeah, she's great. She'll answer your questions or pitch them up to us and we can answer them for you. So that'll be exciting too.
Keep them coming. We're happy to address all of your questions.
Right. That's the best part about this is being interactive. So again, here's the link to our module, and you can complete the learning exercises as we go through them, or just watch the video and go back later and watch it on demand. And let's keep it exciting for you.
So hi everyone. So hi to your moderator on chat. Whether you are on LinkedIn, on Learn Live, on Twitter, on Twitch, on YouTube, wherever you are.
It's a good time to learn. So here's our quick learning objectives. We're going to identify storage for file shares and blob data. What's a good use case for using which one? Configuring Azure file shares and file share snapshots, when to use them, how easy it is to actually use, and then identify features and use cases for Azure File Sync. And then last, we will identify Azure File Sync components and actually configure Azure File Sync as well. So introduction slide, here we go. As you may or may not know, Azure Files offers like a fully managed file share in the cloud that's accessible via protocol, standard industry protocols, SMB. So it's just like you use on premises when you do a file share, you can now do this in the cloud and connect from on-prem into Azure.
So this is really good because you can connect over SMB and the REST interface.
Yeah, keep it secure, right? And then in this module, it has a use case saying this company has a large repository of documents used across the organization. Let's say they have different locations, offices in different areas geographically, and they all need to access the files that are the most current versions, are up to date, and access them quickly. So how do we solve that with using Azure Files and Azure File Sync? So some Azure File Share use cases. I know for me personally, we'd mount everyone's, my documents to a shared drive, and then we'd always be running out of space. And people put their cat photos up or their, family vacation photos. So you're always expanding. So at least with Azure Files, you can expand that storage or make them clean up the drive. But it uses the SMB protocol, like we mentioned. And then it stores true directory objects, just like on premises. And you can share across multiple virtual machines accessing it at the same time. So just like a normal file share.
Just like any network folder you have on your machine.
Yeah.
So everyone can access the same data at the same time.
Exactly. So you can anyone with the mounted drive and the appropriate security can get access to that file, and you can both open it up and use it and save it, and it'll keep the changes for you.
Well, you can also improve the latency, so you can get your data real fast.
Yeah, right. Especially if you're like that geographic issue, if you want to access them.
If we're so far away, like you and I right now.
Yeah, right. You're in Israel right now, right?
Yeah.
I'm in
so
the
we're
US.
really far away, but we can access the same files at the same time, keep them up to date from anywhere across the world.
Exactly. Like minimal latency. That's pretty cool. I didn't actually think we'd be doing that in this day and age, when you're a kid growing up. It seems pretty cool. So yeah, you have the SMB share. It's just the same as you would run on your desktop. You can even mount it. You can mount it on Windows, obviously, but Linux and Mac OS. And we have some common use case scenarios on the next slide. Like I mentioned, maybe you're replacing or supplementing your on-premises like file server, you're running out of space, or you have like where people are in different areas now, you're global. You need people to access that. It's easier to put it up in the cloud versus all these VPN connections into your data center. Or maybe you're migrating your file server so you can migrate into Azure and lift and shift those files. And then importantly, when Amit goes over the Azure File Sync agent, that can really keep those files up to date. It replicates your on-premises files into the cloud, and you have that caching of the data, so it can you can pull it up.
Reach a close endpoint, yeah.
Right.
Favor cache just right away.
Right. And then shared applications. So if you have application settings or config files that you want to save and share for multiple for the same application, then it's another good use case.
It's very good for persistent storage for unpersistent environment. Like if you're working in virtual desktop or even in a Kubernetes cluster, you can mount it as a persistent share, and then everyone can get their files right where they are. It doesn't matter if they log into a VM or to a session. So there are a lot of use cases where we can consume that real nice by our ID authentication, even with our own credentials. So it's all secure and right in the cloud.
That's great. Yeah, it's just a file share. You're not spinning up a VM or, So some things to consider. Diagnostic data. You can use Azure Files to store that diagnostic data, like logs, that just kind of suck up your storage. You can have that in a shared location so everyone can troubleshoot together. It's also a good option for storing tools and utilities for developing, just like Amit mentioned. So the Kubernetes scenario sounds amazing. Or just
even just for admins, whenever you want to manage some VM and you have some files you want to forward to it, so it can be very tricky to try and forward the file if you're just connecting through a session. But if you put it on a drive, mount it in the machine, it's immediately there.
Right. That's great. And then you have the Azure File Sync agent to replicate everything and distribute the caching, just like we mentioned. And later on, we'll be demoing that for you.
We'll see some more use cases.
Yeah. So there is blob storage as well. So there's a comparison in this module. What's the difference? So you might not know when to use Azure Files to store data, or you use Azure Blob or Azure Disk, but it's pretty easy. Azure Files provides a SMB and NFS protocol and that REST interface that Amit mentioned, so you can allow access from anywhere. The files are true directory objects. Data in Azure Files can be accessed by multiple people, multiple VMs. Then you have Azure Blob storage, which is pretty cool. And I was happy when I learned it stands for binary large object. Exactly. So yeah, I'm like, what's a blob? Why is it called blob?
Why is it a blob? Yeah.
So it also has a REST interface, but it's more for unstructured data. So you can store like documents or media files, audio files, videos of your family vacation, maybe.
Yeah, this is a true platform service. So it's natively integrated to all the additional capabilities of Azure, like Azure AD, on all of your application through the REST interface. So it's really useful for massive amounts of data that you need to store there. There are some specialized blob, like append blobs for for logs. The block blobs are the default one, and we have also the page blobs that are the next one.
Right, and page blobs are easy to remember because it's more meant for smaller use case, random reads and writes, like your VM. So your OS drive, it's a 512 byte page. Yeah, so you're not going to put videos on it. And as I mentioned, so Azure Files, it's ideal for lift and shift for your home directories, predictable performance. Blob is ideal for that large scale, maybe read heavy, sequential access to data. and then you minimally modify it later to hopefully save on cost. And then scenarios are the media rendering, or even I know people like genomic data sequencing, pretty cool, or analytical data. And
Very
the
much
page,
for analytical data and archive
yeah,
and backup, just anything you want.
right, because then you can go to cold and archive, right?
Exactly. There's even a new tier. The cold is a new one.
Oh, right. And then page blobs, like we mentioned, it's the 512 byte, and you can read and write arbitrarily, but it's ideal for OSs and stuff like virtual machines.
Yeah, and all of them, by the way, can be shared between machines and act as a persistent storage.
Oh, really? That's
Yeah.
cool. That's good to know. I didn't know that. So here we're going to go into managing your Azure file share. What's important to note is that SMB protocol, so 445, needs to be open because it needs to talk over that port. And then enable that secure transfer with the REST API. So you're using HTTPS to secure your traffic, because obviously you don't want your files being just flying over the internet. So I will demo this for you.
Yeah. The SMB must be 3.0 or higher to make sure that it's secure transfer.
Mm-hmm. And so if I go into the Azure portal, I'm going to create a resource because we need a storage account before we can do anything. So you just type in storage account, click create.
That is a platform service that allows you to consume all types of storage and storage types underneath it, like the blobs, like the file shares, like queues, table, static web pages, data lakes, all in one.
Right. And it's important to notice your storage account name has to be unique across Azure. So I had to change it there.
Yeah, it's used to create the endpoint to access our storage.
Right. We don't want to get confused with which storage we're connecting to. Here, I'll just create it and deploy. It's pretty quick.
Well, it's platform.
Right. So it's got to build that endpoint. And if we go to resource, here you can see we can go to file shares. There's nothing here yet. So let's create a file share. And I'm going to call it Learn Live is Awesome. Oh, can't type here. Well, let's go. And here it mentions again, SMB. Make sure you have that. We have the 5 terabyte quota by default.
You can increase it to 100, by the way.
Oh, great. And then connect for Windows. I'm going to use the drive letter Z, use that storage account key instead of Active Directory for now. And it creates this PowerShell script for you, which is pretty cool. So I'm going to go to my VM and run that PowerShell script. So I saved it locally, and then I'm going to mount the drive. I was very creative in naming it Mount Drive here. And this script is actually going to check for the port being open and it's seeing if it gets a response from that storage endpoint. And the credentials were good. We're connected.
All right.
So Learn Live is awesome.
Well, it is.
It is. It's our file share. Let's put a document, just test it out. Hello. Hi, Learn Live audience. Keep asking questions.
Yeah, if there's anything you would like to know, feel free to pop it in the chat. Sarah will be happy to support you. And she can ask us as well. If there'll be something interesting, maybe we'll present it.
There you go. And then here's my file in the Azure portal now. So it's up in the cloud.
All right.
It showed up right away. So that's all.
That's so cool.
Yeah. And then if we go back, I'm going to go into the portal to my desktop. Mr. Producer Man. Hi. So what's great also is once you have your files up, let's say you want to do a change, you're going to modify a document or you're going to modify something, you think it might blow up, you can create a snapshot, which just creates a delta. And you can see I did one here earlier and it has my hello text. But I can also, let's say I'm going to put something new. I'm going to upload a file. Browse. I'm going to put on my desktop. I put a cat txt file with a nice ASCII little image. And so it's successfully uploaded. I hear a cat, I think.
It's on the browse. They changed the interface.
Oh, right. So now there's that. And now if I take another snapshot, let's see, added a cat. So now it has both files. So it's just a good way to, it's another way. It's not a backup. It's just creating that Delta little file of your changes. And if you want to revert back, you can delete. It's a nice thing to have in place for you.
Yeah, just a read-only copy of the current state, what have been changed from the last snapshot.
Mm-hmm.
So we can quickly come back if, for example, our application got too many writes into our file share and corrupted all the data.
Right. Because that never happens.
Or someone initiated some deletion operation and removed all our files, so we can always come back.
Right. Or any kind of virus attack, you don't want to, So files are in snapshot and you're safe. So we covered that. So this is just a screenshot of adding a snapshot.
And you can actually recover the entire share in just a single file from it. So it's really good.
Oh, nice. Yeah, it's at the file share level, so you can just recover the whole thing.
Exactly.
But it's just good to note they're incremental. So it saves you in storage costs. It's not an entire snapshot of everything every time. So it's incremental. And then you could just restore from that, like most recent snapshot will restore everything. And then you can go to the individual file level. If you do want to delete a share, you have to delete all the snapshots.
Well, it makes sense because if you're keeping backup, you probably don't want to delete the entire share.
Right. Like, wait a minute, we have snapshots.
And it can also, of course, be automated if integrated to the backup, to the recovery services vault. So you can take automated backup and also keep them in the recovery services vault. So that is very useful if you want to complete the backup operation.
Oh, that's
have
nice.
the lowest cost at point of time, and also automated backup and snapshotting, of course, because all backups start with a snapshot, and then it's transferred to the vault. So you can recover from snapshot or from the vault standard file.
Ooh, that's even better. So snapshots in the interim, backups for long-term.
Exactly.
So yeah, these are just, again, the things to know that we mentioned, that you could do a whole file share. You can do the most recent snapshot to restore everything. You can do file level, and then add those backups too to keep your file safe. We already mentioned it. We're jumping ahead. You protect against application error and data corruption. So anything that uses a file share and you have an accidental overwrite, or someone updated too soon and now there's a bug, you can revert back. Accidental deletions. We know that we're all human. I've done that. I've deleted stuff. That was the wrong file. Oh, God.
Oh, no. Well, you can also leverage locks for that. Just be
right. Don't let Amy in this file share. She'll delete stuff.
Let's just protect the subscription you're using with a do not delete lock.
Right. That's why it's locked down. I can't do anything.
Well, that would be read-only. So we can just do a do not delete lock, and then all addition and notifications allowed, but not remove anything.
Right, exactly. So you protect it. It's ultra protection. And then, like, you created that, or you discussed that great use case, the supporting backup and recovery. So not only can you use snapshots, you can do backup and recovery. So snapshots, I would think, is more short-term, backup and recovery, more long-term.
Well, you can keep in the backup vault for as long as you want. There are a lot of management possibilities for long-time retention, for short-time retention. It is just a secure place where you can hold all of your automated snapshots and your backup. And you can, of course, connect, recover the full share, just a file from there. It's just an additional position to hold in a secure component in our secured vault, protected from deletion, enable secure transfer authentication, so we can keep our data secure and have a place to recover to if something goes wrong.
Right. Yes. Always be prepared.
Yes, good sense to back up your backup.
Right. Back up your backup.
Yeah, it's from France. It's from Phoebe. Right. One of my favorite lines is like, yeah, it just good sense to back up your backup, right?
Right. Well, that's what, back in some people still use tapes, you have your backup on-prem and backup in the cloud and then backup to tape, so back up your
Yeah,
backups.
probably we want to replace those tapes. We have a lot of offering. The file sync can just upload everything to the cloud, and you can back it up in the recovery services vault. So that would be just awesome.
Exactly. And I love this diagram you added for the Azure File Share, how it talks over the port, SMB port 445. Maybe you're connecting through VPN, and you have the recovery services vault. You can, sorry.
It's okay. You heard about the cat, so you can join.
Yeah. So, and with Azure AD, you can use that to use authentication, or you could just use that key authentication. So
yeah, because Azure File Share works or Canberra's ticketing, so it's Windows authentication. So it's natively supported with the Active Directory, and then we can implement the AD Connect or Cloud Sync to synchronize to the Azure AD, and then we can sign in with our own credentials. There's a really cool solution with FS Logic that you can map it by your user profile. And then again, as I mentioned before, you can log into a machine, to virtual desktop environment, to unpersistent environment, and get your files in place no matter where you are by your own identity. So it's much more secure and much more productive for your users.
Definitely.
Well, you still keep security in place.
Right. Well, hey, I think it's time for you to take over and tell me about Azure File Sync.
Well, okay, so let's do that. We have seen the Azure File Shares. There are the native support for the Azure File Sync. What it actually does allow to perform caching around multiple endpoints, synchronize all of your servers, and upload that into the cloud. Supported to all of your familiar protocols across Windows machines, Windows servers, so NFS, SMB, FTPS. So we can configure all of our files that will be just the same in all of our workloads all around the globe. So we will see also some demo for that as well. It can be used for so many stuff, for lift and shift in migration. It's so much in use because you can just configure the path across the servers and it will start to pick up the files and synchronize it across all of your workloads. So if you have multiple branches across the world, instead of uploading the file to each and every server, and then you need to monitor for changes. And now the marketing team created a new mock and I need to use it, but it's in the United States and I'm currently in Israel. How do I get that? They changed it just yesterday. They didn't upload the updated version. So if I'm using the file sync, it will just pick up the changes for me, update it on my server. So it will be updated for Amy in the United States, will be updated for me in Israel. It will be updated for all of our team members. So we can all consume the same data at the same time. Also useful, of course, for backup and recovery because you keep a cache on your local server, but you keep all the data in an Azure File Share that, as we said before, highly flexible to access from anywhere. So you have the SMB interface, you have the FTP or on the NFS interface, and you have the rest from the cloud. So your files are available, always keeping up to date and synchronizing to the cloud.
And
yeah,
I don't know if we cover this, but you can create sync groups as well. So let's say this application needs to be in sync with something else.
But exactly. So we can do it by the functionality, by the business usage, and not just mix all of our departments file together.
Right.
That's such a mess, right? Another really cool option here is to configure the cloud tiering. So if we have frequently accessed files, so of course we will keep them as local cache on the server. But sometimes our files we're not really accessing, maybe some privacy policies or licensing information that we need to reach from time to time, but not very frequent, right? We need to watch them. We need to have them up to date. But it doesn't really matter to keep it locally on my server because maybe I'll use it, maybe I'm not. What it does, it will configure an endpoint and just pointing to the URL that exists in Azure. Whenever you want to retrieve the file, it will seamlessly fetch it from the cloud without the user even have to notice that. So you can analyze which one are offline, which one are online, but everything is immediately accessible and
that's That's really great because I know as an administrator for like an on-prem environment, we always would have those arguments too. Like, I need these files. I use them all the time. And then you're like, last time access. No. So this would help you. All right, we're just going to tear it off and it'll appear when you do need it, when you use it once a year, but you're saying you use it every day.
So yeah, you're not really using it.
You're right.
You're just saying that. So we'll keep it in the cloud. If you need it, it's there.
Exactly. User
so
will
we
be
can
none the
save
wiser.
a lot of costs as well.
Yeah, for sure, with the tiering.
So a great example would be to have our own environment, of course, on top of Azure with our file shares. Sorry for my handwriting. So we have our file share on Azure, and we have some branches in Germany and in Mexico, in Seattle, and some other branch office, maybe Israel. But we all need to have access to the same file. We're working on the same slide. We're working on the same development environment. We're doing some testing. So we probably need to have the unified testing file all across the globe, right? I'm not using different testing file than the Mexican team or the United States team. It's all the same, and we need to have everything in place. So what we can do, we can configure all of our servers to be synchronized, so all of the data will be kept on all of them at the same time, and upload to Azure, so we can access locally from the server or from the file share itself, however we wish.
Looks happy now.
So let's see how it works, what kind of component. You mentioned the sync groups. So those are a crucial part of the deployment of the Azure File Sync. It contains 4 main components, some other component. We have like a brother to the storage account that is called the Storage Sync Service, a top-level service that allowing us to add all of our servers, configure our synchronization group, which would be our intent, where what files are being kept in what location, the mapping into the file share as well. So we can keep it by project, by department, by environment, depending on our needs. We can accommodate to the business functionality. So it looks like that, something like that.
Right.
So we have, it's illustration.
Right.
Yeah, we have the top level resource, the storage sync service. It's your regional service, so you can deploy it anywhere across the regions of Azure and match to your storage account location. You have your storage account, which contains your file share. So both of them need to exist in the same location, in the same region on top of Azure. And the file share is called a cloud endpoint. So the storage sync service will hold all the synchronization settings for all of my registered servers. This is all of the servers that I installed the Azure File Sync agent on. It was just to configure the relationship into the sync service and into Azure. So we need to authenticate to our account, and then we can send the data into Azure. So it's just mapping it. And after that, we create our synchronization group, for example, for accounting, for sales, for marketing, QA, for any business purpose that we would like. And we will map it to the cloud endpoint and to the path across the server. So that would be the server endpoint, with actually a path on top of your server that it will start picking up data from and upload it into your cloud endpoint, which is in a storage account file share that is natively integrated also to our Azure backup. So you have your data on the server, you have the data on a file share, and potentially backed up into a recovery services vault.
That's great.
Exactly. It's really easy to manage. All you need to do, you need to identify some step in order to deploy the file sync. So you need to have privileges, of course, for creating that kind of service. So you need to have your Azure account under your tenant, a subscription, a resource group, and then we can create in the same location. We created the storage account for the file shares, the storage synchronization service, regional location. You can isolate it and consume it completely private. You will go ahead and prepare your servers. So you need to prepare your folders that you would like to sync. If you go into the server, it's all messed up, all the marketing API file all over the place. So it will be such a mess to start configuring sync, right?
Right.
So we'll probably do some organizement in our environment, in our on-premises, in all of our Windows servers. Keep in mind it's only for Windows. Then we're installing the file sync agent by the appropriate version of the operating system and registering into Azure. It's just about authenticating your credential and choosing the right storage sync service. Then it will look something like that, where all of our files can exist on top of the servers. Doesn't matter where they are, all the servers are installed with the Azure File Sync agent, where on each and every one we have the server path, the server endpoint, where we can access from our client directly to the local cache on top of the servers. It will also synchronize all of the data into our Azure file shares. It can be one, it can be more, depending on the sync group, where we can also reach it through the REST interface directly from the cloud. Of course, supported for the Azure AD authentication with the Azure AD Connect. So let's jump into the portal and see how we can configure that. Of course, any questions you have at any time, feel free to prompt them.
Looks like Sarah's taking care of it. She's on it.
Yeah, I have some service issues today, but it's nothing that impacting us. It did impact my training this morning, but that's how we roll, right? We have service issues from time to time. That is why backup and recovery plan is so important. So we can keep on the go, we can keep on working. So we can look for storage sync services and then create a new synchronization service. It's just about mapping it into a subscription, a resource group, providing it a name and a region. We can completely isolate from the network with the private endpoint. So if you want to consume private synchronization, you can. So if you work with ExpressRoute for the redundant optical fiber connection to Azure, and you have your file synchronization in Azure in place, and your file shares restricted also to your network, everything can be in the same network, virtual network in Azure. So you can consume private to private connection. We can, of course, add some tagging for environment ownership, for whatever we want to identify by our own categories.
Always use tags. Highly recommend tags.
Really recommend it. You can enforce it with a policy, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
And then how to get started? We will start and register our server. So we have the file sync agent that we can download right from here or from the getting started, however you prefer. It's the same one. Then I install it on a couple of my VMs. They can be also physical machines, physical servers in other clouds. No matter where they are, we can install the agent on top of them. We just need the files shared to be in the same place. So I installed my agent and mapped into my file synchronization. Then you can go ahead and create synchronization group that Amy mentioned. And we can do it for any kind of purpose that we would like. So let's say we're working on some testing. I want to make sure that all of my QA file will keep in place. So I need to map it into a storage account to create the cloud endpoint. So I created for us a storage account, and we can map it into a specific file share. So I created one that is called to sync, just an empty share so we can fetch all the files up to it. Once I'm creating the synchronization group, it will create for me in a second the cloud endpoint, mapping into my file share, and then it's already in use. I use it for my other
already
group.
did it.
Yeah, I already did it, so I thought I did another one, but we can add another cloud endpoint. So let's choose again my storage account. Yeah, I already did it to make sure that everything is working. Let's put it in the training files. Another empty share. It will create the mapping. Yeah, I just created several, and one of them is already configured for us, so we can see how it looks. So right now it's mapping into my file share, so I can go ahead and store my files in there. Now I need to add where I'm taking the files from, and that would be the server endpoint. So I can choose any one of my servers, for example, my Windows 1 VM. So I have here some virtual machines. We can browse and see that I've configured some demo files on top of that VM. Connecting through a Bastion service that allows me to not expose any of my VMs over public IP, not opening on any management ports. I can just natively connect over SSL. One of my favorite solutions to manage virtual machines.
Yes, I love it now. And you can create.
Just quickly browse into it. Also authenticated for a Key Vault or Azure AD authentication. So I just created for us on the desktop here. No, not on the desktop, sorry, on my documents. I created here some docs and images. Those are just the sample files that we have here. And some sample images. So I can say, all right, let's copy. Sorry, not what I meant to do. I meant to go and copy the path. So I can go and see, all right, let's copy the path for that file. And we will go ahead and start synchronizing. So from my documents or from just the images or from, just the files, just one of the folders, I can copy the path. Then go back into my server and configure wherever I want to pick up the files from. Keep in mind that on the system drive, you cannot configure tiering, but for any other drive, you can. So now it's mapping my folder, and it will start picking up files and put it in the file share. While it's creating, we can visit our already created endpoint. So I have here the file sync that I tried to associate before. So it's mapping into another file share, and it will start picking up files from the desktop on my other VM. So I had some sample files. We can browse the cloud endpoint and the file share itself.
It's working. There we go.
Yeah, it's working. I can also jump into it. It actually opened here. But it's just a quick way to get there. You don't have to open all of your file shares. You can just reach it from the file sync. So the files are already in here, been uploaded from my system, so it synchronized them on its own. We can check if it's already been synchronized in our training file, probably just the system information so far. Oh no, it's already here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So already here, all of my images, my documents, that was way too fast, way faster than I anticipated.
Right. Especially when you're demoing, everything goes fast.
Usually it's the other way around.
Exactly.
But yeah, my files, so I have them right in here. It's the same files that I found here on my documents, the docs, the images, directly in my file share. So it's accessible from the server. It's accessible from the SMB file share through the REST interface. I get the REST interface for all of them. So I have here the URL I can browse into, of course, after authentication and secure transfer. And I can, of course, mount it into another share. I can take snapshot backup, just like Amy provided before the demo. Everything is available. So whenever it's in the cloud, it's a cloud service, and you can use it however you wish.
That's amazing. Love it.
It is, right?
Yeah, I think it's
Thank
great.
you.
I wish we had this when I was an administrator on prem. It's like file shares are always a hot mess and not fun.
Yeah, when you want to authenticate to the backup vaults or the recovery services vault, so it's sometimes very difficult to transfer all the authentication file or your scripts or your diagnostical tool. So you can just put it in the file share, mount it in a VM, and it's immediately there. Right. Or if it's in another server, just do the file sync and synchronize into another server. So it will be immediately there as well.
Exactly. Power of the cloud.
Yeah. So before we go into the knowledge checks, if there are any questions, feel free to prompt them. We'll be happy to answer.
Like I said, I think Sarah's been really handling it.
Yeah, she's amazing, right? Yeah. Sarah is so amazing. Thank you, Sarah, for supporting us.
There was a question.
So it's a good time as any time?
Sure, let's do a knowledge check. See if we schooled ourselves and everyone else the correct way. I think they could participate as well. I think it might be on the next slide where you can choose the correct choice and help us get it right. Yeah, aka MS stop or /polls.
So we'll go now.
Yes.
scan the QR or just go to aka.ms/polls.
And we'll see if we all get it. I'll put it up now. Do you want to ask the question? So which of the following statements correctly describes cloud tiering? A, cloud tiering prioritizes the sync order of file shares. Or B, cloud tiering sets the frequency at which the sync job runs. Or C, cloud tiering archives infrequently accessed files to free up space on the local file share. So what would you think would be for cloud tiering?
Well, it's hard to tell because we just got started with it and we probably need some more experience. So just if we listen very closely.
I would think it's probably C.
Well, let's find out. Let's take like 10 more seconds to
Sure,
allow more responses.
Because it doesn't set the frequency at which the job runs. That's set, you know.
Well, no.
And it can't prioritize. I didn't see anything about that.
It doesn't know the priority.
Right. It's an important file. I need it synced now. All right.
All right. So please try to comment on the chat. Which one do you think is correct?
Yeah. See people answering.
A, B, C.
Like the pick and C. Let's see.
Are we ready?
I think so. We've got comments. Let's see. Yeah. I think we're pretty secure that it's C. Nice.
Yes, you are correct. That's exactly what it does. Whenever there's a file that is infrequently accessed, it just identifies that. It doesn't set or prioritize. It just, hey, you didn't interact with that file, so I can go ahead and move it into the cloud and just point to it.
Right. It saves you from having to move stuff.
So you won't have to do it yourself and monitor and analyze which one are accessed frequently or not.
Right. Doesn't sound like a fun job.
Yeah, it's not. In Azure Files, for example, you have the lifecycle management rules that you can move it into a cooler tier.
Right.
So that's some kind of comparison to that.
All right.
Let's see what's next.
Yeah.
So we now ask, what is the best way to sync files stored in a manufacturing warehouse machine with the cloud? Would it be A, to create an Azure file share and directly mount the share on the machine in the warehouse? Or B, use a machine in the warehouse to store the file share, install the file sync, and share drive with the rest of the warehouse? Or C, install the Azure File Sync on every machine in the warehouse and also in the main offices? Please guess over chat.
Yes. Or the poll as well. We're checking that.
That's a more complex question, right? Because we have many machines here that are working together as part of a warehouse.
There's some mixed BA. I know C kind of feels like, if you're familiar with Oprah, like you get a file sync, you get a file sync. It seems a little overkill. Every machine and in the main office. So
everywhere. Well, that might be a little bit too much of management.
Yeah. I would think, let's see, create an Azure file share and directly mount. Let's see. Or use a machine in the warehouse to host a file share, install Azure Sync. Yeah, I would personally, I think B.
Well, they might be like a bit easier way to handle instead of installing on every single machine.
Directly mounting, or just all.
Well, yeah, if it was in the cloud, so you will probably just handle it through templates and it would be easier to do even if it was on every machine. But because it's on premises, it's a lot of maintenance, a lot of work. So we might want to think in a more easier configuration to go with.
Right. So what's the answer? I think we have A's and B's in the mix.
So the correct one was B. Like you said, it will probably be just easier to mount it on top of one server as a centralized environment and then just mount the drive. So you install once and just share the drive with the rest of them, and it will take care of the cloud tiering and everything. So you can just manage one machine instead of your entire warehouse.
Right. kind of takes the use case out of the, the simplicity of it. It makes it complex.
Exactly. To maintain every single server, even to mount every single server, it can be done, of course.
Right.
Would it be
Long
like the best practice, the easier to handle? Probably not.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see for our last question. Take it.
All right. How is the Azure File Sync agent installed and used? A, the Azure File Sync agent is installed on a server to enable Azure File Sync replication between the local file share and an Azure file share. B, the Azure File Sync agent is installed on a server to set NTFS permissions on files and folders. Or C, the Azure File Sync agent is installed on an Azure file share to control on-premises file and folder replication traffic. Well, I'm trying to think back when you were showing us the Azure File Sync agent being installed.
So we need to think from the beginning. Where do we work with agents? Where do we work with the file shares?
Right.
How does the sync work?
So yeah, and there wasn't setting NTFS permissions.
I didn't touch the permissions.
And we weren't controlling replication traffic.
But it does support for NFS.
That's true.
Not NTFS.
Right. So NFS. Let's get rid of the T.
Yeah, just dismiss it. Why not?
And then, so yeah, I think the audience is saying it too. A, you install the sync agent on your server to enable that replication between that local file share into the Azure file share, like you showed earlier.
Well, that makes sense since we're not installing any agents on file share. It's just a cloud service. At max, you will add some extension if it's a cloud resource, right? You don't really install agents on them.
Right.
Maybe on machines you do, but file shares
don't need an agent.
Yeah, we don't need an agent. You can just map it. Rest in peace, right?
Right.
So you're absolutely on the money. We install the agent on the server, then we will enable the replication. So it's a trusted relationship that will map it and sync all the data to our file share.
Great.
So great job. Well done,
everyone.
Good
job, team.
Thank you for participating.
Yeah, thanks for helping.
So now we'll share with you some resources that might be very useful for you to continue and onboard and upscale your skills. You can also, of course, find them in Microsoft Learn. In the session, we got started to identify all the storage for file shares and for blob data. We had some discussion about disks as well as part of the page blobs. We have seen how to configure the file share and the snapshot. We had a great demo from Amy. And then we moved on to the use cases of file shares and file synchronization service with the Azure File Sync. So we identified the feature, its components, and how to configure it. So all the resources can be found in this link. So it's on your screen, should be right now. You can go to aka.ms/aajczzj or scan the code.
That's easy to say.
Yeah, probably easier to scan it.
Right. Azure File Sync, is it available via Windows features? I mean, the agent. No, you have to download the agent from the cloud, from the Azure.
Yeah, you have the link in the file synchronization service. Or you can just look it up online and download the right version.
Right. So
it's just for Windows, but many versions of Windows Server. So if we're going to go, I can show you that, no worries.
Sure.
If we're going to go back into our portal and to our sync service. So when we're going to getting started, we actually have a really nice video here that demonstrating the full operation. So if you forgot something, you can always revisit. You have the link to download the File Sync agent. And if you visit this site, it will provide you with all the capabilities, all the agents that you can work with. So if I'm clicking on download, so I will be presented with all the additional features that I have. So if I need to work with 2019, or if I need to work with 2012, 2016, or even the new 2022. So you can work with all of them. You just need to install the right version. Otherwise, it will tell you, hey, this agent is only working for Windows Server 2019. Download the right version.
And if you're on 2012, it's time to migrate or upgrade. So
yeah, definitely 08 is out of support, but this is also going to come out of support real soon. So I work with a modernized one, at least to 16. Probably prefer 2019 or the new version of 2022.
Definitely.
So yeah, all of this is available to you on the resources link. And of course, our link for the learning module that you're more than welcome to complete on your own. There are the knowledge check in the end, and you can scan the code or you can click on the link. It's the same link from before. So
you get
go ahead.
You get points too. I don't know if you get like anything out of the points, but you get XP level. I'm always trying to beat coworkers. One person on our team has done every module on Learn.
Wow.
So no one's going to beat him, but yeah,
you can that for sure.
See what you've completed and badge up.
You can get all of your achievements up to date and your XP level. And it's also a really nice experience because you know exactly how much time it will take you to complete it. So you have the reference, for example, for how many minutes it will assume to be taken. So you can divide your learning however you prefer. So I only have like 20 minutes now, so I can run a quick module. I have like 10 minutes. Let's run a portion of it or some exercise.
That's great. Yeah.
So thanks everyone for joining for our learning module for the Learn Live, but don't be afraid, it's not the last one. We have a new one coming next week. So if you're interested in confidential computing with the Azure Virtual Machine, don't miss that one out. You can scan the QR codes to follow up with the modules even in advance. And of course, join us live. We'll be here, not us, other experts. But we'll probably watch it because it's super interesting about the confidential computing, the new machines that are helping us to secure our workloads.
Right.
So yeah, don't miss out. Join us for the Learn Live series. And thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for the interaction, the questions, and helping us answer the knowledge check.